Some people thought it was evil, and even there's a thing about Eamon de Valera, ex-president of Ireland, giving this talk about that we have to control television. It's coming into our homes and it could be evil.
Oh God!
And change how people are.
It's going to be so bad.
Did you ever hear the expression "no news is good news"?
We're the happy headers, and Paul, no news is good news. I suppose is the best one, really, isn't it? Because when you think about news, there's not only fucking negative news. It's always bad, and it always fuels hatred and violence and racism and all sorts of things.
It creates anxiety. Whether you're looking at stuff on TV, the actual news, or reading newspapers, or even scrolling through social media, news is a negative bias.
Yeah, it is actually, yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's always something on it that's about people getting killed or dying. Yeah. Flipping hell, it's horrible.
I spoke to you about this before, I think it was on a video, but maybe not. Magazines in shops, especially women's magazines. Not that I've been looking at women's magazines in shops.
Why not, Paul?
On the cover, you'll see 4 or 5 headlines. They're all bad, horrible things, like my ex-boyfriend
cheated on me,
or slept with my mother's
grandmother. God!
And killed her gerbil.
Okay.
Lots of negativity because it draws people in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the front page of newspapers, it's always, gangs and pedophiles and all sorts of horrible things that you don't want to be looking at.
I was on holidays recently, right, and I hadn't listened to the news, hadn't been listening to radio, because when you step out of your normal routine on holidays, you kind of do other stuff. You're just not bothered watching television or listening to radio.
Yeah.
And I do hypnosis, as you know, and in hypnosis what I do is I create colourful pictures, very realistic pictures in somebody's imagination to get them to think of something. But I remember getting off the plane, sitting into the car, turning the car, and the radio comes on automatically. And I was at the news. Yeah. And I was talking about somebody, a burn victim, and has got these burns, 3rd-degree burns down the body, and I go,
Jesus.
And straight away, this horrible picture is now in my mind, in my imagination. I think, oh my God. Imagine people who've been listening, I haven't been listening to that in 2 weeks, but people who've been listening to that on the hour, every hour, bombarding into their subconscious mind. Yeah. What condition would you be in?
Jesus. Do you remember growing up and the 9 o'clock news had come on?
Oh yeah. Oh. It has to be quiet.
This is a historic moment now, I tell you, in Ireland over here, because I tell you, my father, he'd kill you if you made a noise when the 9 o'clock news was on. Yeah. You couldn't make any sound. Everyone had to be really quiet. And he'd be listening to the news, and then himself and the mother would have a discussion about the news afterwards. Oh, and the weather. Yes. Weather. And of course in Ireland the weather's always bad. Right. It's really always piss and rain, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why there's large Irish families.
I'm telling you, there's no television in most houses.
My mother told me that when she had her first job, she bought a radio for the house for her father. And it was one of these ones, I think there was some, I don't know, was it, she called it something, powder battery or whatever was in it, but it was a battery that needed to be changed. You had to go in and get a different battery every couple of weeks. But when my grandfather turned it on, he only listened to the news on it and then he switched it off.
Wow.
Like he was saving the battery, but he thought that's what the radio was for. Just
right,
for the news.
The delivery of the news.
Yeah.
Isn't it hilarious?
Mad.
Because nobody wanted to accept the radio when it came around first. We think, that's ridiculous when we go and see people in person.
I didn't want electricity when it came out first.
Well, this is it. There were so many factors involved in it.
It was evil, and even there's a thing about Eamon de Valera, ex-president of Ireland, giving this talk about that we have to control television. It's coming into our homes, and it could be evil.
Oh God!
And change how people are.
Yeah, it's going to be so bad.
And it could take away the power of the church. But when you think of it, how we know what the world is like, our worldview, is very much dictated by the news that we're bombarded with.
Yeah. If you choose to look at it, I don't watch the news for that very reason. I don't read the newspapers either. Apart from the fact that sometimes my clients are in the news.
Right. Okay.
Apart from that, I don't want that bias. Do you know what I mean? I want their story and nobody else's. I'm sure you're the same.
I went for 90 days without listening to the news one time as an experiment.
Yeah.
And I had people coming up to me volunteering the news. Did you hear what happened? I go, no, and I don't want to know what happened.
Wow.
But it was great for clearing up my head. Do you know, it was when Nelson Mandela was ill. And the only thing I was curious about was is Nelson Mandela still alive or dead?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't make any difference whether I know or not. It's not going to make any difference to him.
Yeah.
I just waited out.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah. Turns out he wasn't dead. But but your whole view out into the world, and because everybody else is listening to the news, topics of conversation, if they start talking about something You have no idea what they're talking about. Like.
Yeah. Actually, and there's another thing, Paul. I became quite obsessed with the news actually back when COVID hit. And it was spreading. Every day, like twice a day, I was watching the news to see the numbers of, people that were COVID positive rising, and, how close was it to, storming Ireland, and where we were and all of that kind of thing. Like, that was the only time actually I became quite obsessed with
you were in a perpetual state of anxiety, waiting this disease to get you.
I was so anxious, and my biggest anxiety was around Jared, my husband and our parents. I was thinking, Jesus, because they're elderly, especially my parents are very elderly, they're in their 80s, I was thinking, if they catch it, they'll never recover from it. Yeah. And then both of them did actually get it, and thank God there was no loss on them. They were grand,
but the news was like this invading force, an illness coming to get your parents.
Yeah.
And you were listening to it every day.
Yeah.
Your anxiety levels must have been through the roof.
Yeah, I was actually very anxious. But at the same time, I loved the whole lockdown thing.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't mind it myself.
Yeah. I just enjoyed the time with the family, actually.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing very little.
Yeah. I loved that.
I was doing some work online, but I didn't really like to do a whole lot online at that time because it was entirely new. Yeah. But I had no problem doing nothing. I'm very good at doing nothing.
Yeah, I like it too. Whenever I get the chance. Just chill. I don't watch the news, lads. What do you think actually about that? I mean, does anybody listen to us watch the news much? And how does it impact you?
Yeah, because the news is, depending on where you get your media from, it's not unbiased. They have their agendas.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see in the States, they talk about Fox News is very much in one camp and CNN in another. And even in Ireland, where do you get your news? And there are some channels on YouTube where they kind of go, you get your unbiased, unfiltered news.
Yeah.
There's a channel I watch, I don't know, is it called something like TDRL or TLRD, people tell me what it is. But they do a great news thing because they'll pick a topic about, is China's economy crashing? But not that I'm that interested in what's happening in China at the moment, but there was one about the situation in Northern Ireland when the Northern Ireland Protocol was going to be, when Boris Johnson was talking about, was the border going to be in the Irish Sea or whatever. And most, certainly UK channels, was having a clue really of the whole historical setup, what's going on. But this one nailed it, everything. That's good, they've done their proper due diligence, they've done their research. So when I'm looking for information, I'll go on there.
They say The Guardian is like that. The Guardian newspaper, they properly research things, and they're not government funded either, so. But I don't know, I'd say there's still a little creep in there,
Yeah, there's a curiosity thing in us all, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
That we need to know what's going on. So let us know, where do you get the news? Are you arsed about getting the news?
Or do you listen to the fake news, hey? We've got to talk about fake news.
We should create our own fake news. That's what we should do. We should have a fake news broadcast.
We're very factual, Paul.
We are the Happy Hitters. Like us, subscribe to us, and we'll talk to you soon.